Welcome to the HealthiHer podcast. Your host, Dr. Amy Brenner, is a board-certified OBGYN with additional certifications in functional and integrative medicine. This podcast is meant to help women find reliable, relevant information to help them feel better, look better, and live better. Here you will hear in-depth information about hormones, sexual medicine, aesthetics, cosmetic gynecology, and functional medicine.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of HealthiHer. I think you're really going to like this episode. We have Cassie Brown, one of the wellness coaches that works in our practice. So welcome, Cassie.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, so you've never been on the podcast. We just give everybody a little bit of your background, how you got into wellness coaching.
Yeah, so like Dr. Brenner said, my name is Cassie Brown. I'm a clinical nutritionist, master's, and a certified holistic health practitioner. I've been doing wellness coaching for around 10 years or so, and went back to graduate school and got my master's in science and clinical nutrition. And my specialty has been metabolic health and cognitive health. I really love to help, men and women, but mostly women step into their power and regain, control of how they're feeling and how they show up in life ultimately. And I'm, new to Dr. Brenner's office for a couple months now, and it's just been fabulous. It's been great.
So in our practice, we use the term wellness coach. For those that are listening, some people might not even know what that means. What does it even mean to work with a wellness coach? Or what does a wellness coach do?
Yeah, so wellness coach varies depending on your specialties and your educational background, your certifications and degrees and things like that. But really, it's all about accountability. You may go to a doctor's appointment, or you may see a PDF, or you may have a specific health journey. And it's kind of closing that gap between what we know we need to do and actually doing it, right? They kind of just fill in that gap of really pinpointing the awareness around the cause and effect of your actions, and just bringing awareness to things we're too close to see sometimes. We're too close to things. We're like, I don't know what's going on, and kind of Tetrising everything to make it easier for you to reach your health and wellness.
Kind of like a trainer for your health.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Beautifully put.
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about insulin or blood sugar spikes, and some practical things you can do to, help soften those spikes. But first of all, let's explain to people, what does that even mean, of an insulin or a blood sugar spike?
Yeah, so both insulin and glucose, we're looking for how extreme, it's kind of like a roller coaster. A lot of people use this example, how extreme these spikes are after you eat a meal. And so we, in our practices, we like to say glycemic variability. And what we're looking for is, instead of rapid spikes of glucose and insulin, we're looking kind of for softer hills instead of, mountains and valleys. And we want that glycemic variability to be low. And so, yeah, basically how high your blood sugar is postprandial or after you eat.
Dr. Tiemann and I did a whole episode, I think it's episode 10, if you haven't listened to it, where we talk specifically about insulin resistance and some of the problems with that, how to get diagnosed. And I know you're obviously, with your criteria, you're not a physician, not a nurse practitioner, so you're not ordering lab tests. We do that in the medical side of our practice. But once somebody is maybe diagnosed with insulin resistance, we actually referred to you and our other wellness coaches for those specific tools and lifestyle medicine of how to prevent those roller coaster hills of insulin and blood sugar. Maybe we could just give a brief summary of, what's the problem? Why do I even care about this? And what's even the problem with insulin or blood sugar spikes?
Yeah, so recent studies in the past like 5 or so years have just been very indicative of our metabolic health just not being as optimal in our country. I think it's, upwards of only 90% or so of us, or actually, let me reverse it. 12% of us are actually metabolically healthy, meaning 90% of us, myself included, maybe you, Dr. Brenner, like we have some work to do to try to get ourselves optimal, right? And so what's happening is, because of this, we're dealing with a lot of mood changes, maybe anxiety, depression, irritability, low executive functioning, and physical symptoms, acne, brain fog, that's kind of both, but rashes. I mean, now oral health is coming into play. And so, dealing with different oral symptoms. I mean, the list really goes on as far as, lethargy, just waking up very fatigued no matter what you try to do. That post-meal slump is extreme, but energy is like the big one. Energy, brain fog, low executive functioning. That's what we're dealing with. And so,
yeah. So you mentioned, I couldn't agree more, is these blood sugar or insulin spikes could be the cause of all these symptoms. If you mentioned even mood, not sleeping, not being able to lose weight is a huge one, feeling hangry. But the list goes on. And those are the things you can feel, let alone the risks that you're putting yourself for Alzheimer's has been called type 3 diabetes. So having these issues puts you at risk for dementia, cardiovascular disease, and even cancer. So it's really important that you do that. And I love that you mentioned how common this is. And like I actually have a problem, and I like to think of myself as pretty healthy, but if I'm not paying attention to, and I think I eat I'm not perfectly, but I think I eat pretty good. I work with you guys, myself, exercise most days of my life. I kind of do all the things, and I still even have a metabolic issue with blood sugar and insulin. It's my Achilles heel, if you will. So
yeah, I think it's everybody's. That's why I was like, should I go in and exhaust this list? Because even premenstrual things we're seeing, PCOS, it's so connected because it's just very inflammatory, having these rapid spikes all the time. And with the brain, with these symptoms, Dr. Brenner, and I know it's so easy to sweep anxiety and stress and overwhelm under the rug and not see them as like a physical ailment, because our brain doesn't have actual pain receptors. Like what you're feeling is like the tissue with the headache or whatnot. But when our brain is dehydrated, not drinking enough water and having these spikes, our brain can't tell us like you can't feel pain. And so its way of telling us it needs help is through that brain fog and through that anxiety. But it's so easy, especially as women, to sweep it under the rug because it's not really calling for a doctor's appointment right away. And like you said, yeah, they're calling type 3 diabetes, Alzheimer's, and dementia. And it's getting younger and younger. I know our patients are getting younger and younger with this imbalance.
Yeah, even kids have this issue. So now in our practice, we do a lot of oral glucose tolerance tests where we look at people's insulin and glucose fasting and have them eat a certain amount of carbohydrates and measure it 2 hours later. For those that are really motivated, we could also write a prescription where everybody can get a glucose monitor for 2 weeks for free. And then if sometimes insurance will cover it if there is a problem, or sometimes people will pay out of pocket. So on the medical side, we're actually looking at those numbers, which I think is really important to know your numbers. But even if you didn't have a problem, I think these are, I want to get into the tips of whether somebody has a problem, of what they can do to kind of blunt those spikes, or what if you don't have the data, some things that everybody can do, because these are tips that we're going to get into that could help everybody. Isn't that right?
Absolutely. And going back to the glucose monitor, I think it's an amazing investment. See it as like an investment versus a cost, because it's very low just to get, like you said, the data. And so, because like you mentioned before, Dr. Brenner, what is healthy nowadays is not, we don't have the same response. I used to eat oatmeal all the time. Unfortunately, my blood sugar spikes after I eat oatmeal, regardless of what I put in it. And that's a health food, but unfortunately I can't have it. And so some things that you can start doing to blunt this and to start out with is, first, I always say, keep a 3 to 5 day food journal. This is something, it really opens your eyes and brings awareness to what you're eating, how much you're eating, but also how you feel after. So if you're having your cup of coffee or whatever you're eating, really pay attention to how you're feeling after. If you're feeling anxious, or when you're hungry after, because typically when your meal is balanced, you should be satiated for a good 4 to 8 hours. Feeling hunger, an hour and a half after is indicative of you just not eating enough, or eating something nutrient dense to keep that blood sugar kind of flowing, or have that optimal energy. And so food journal. The next is food order. So don't even pay attention to what you're eating right now. Food order it's absolutely amazing. There was a study done in, I think, 2015, Dr. Brenner. It was from Cornell University, and it was targeted towards solely diabetes patients, type 2 diabetes patients. That's why I didn't get as much awareness, I'm assuming. But it said that, and I'll get to this in a second, it said that putting your food in a specific order reduces your insulin, your after you eat, your insulin spike by 73%. 73. And then glucose by, I think it was 48%, which is crazy. So what you can do is to look at your plate, and you always want to start with, your fiber or your leafy green veggies first, your protein, your fat, and then your starchy carbs or sugars, right? So what this is going to do is that fiber is going to create that mesh kind of lining in your stomach and stop that glucose from hitting your bloodstream, raising that blood sugar up. So I'm trying to break this down into layman's terms. So if you think about it, if you eat carbs and sugar first, or starches and sugars, they break down into glucose really, really quick. And, they reaches your brain really fast. And that's why our brain prefers glucose, because we just process it really, really quickly. But you want to do the opposite. And so right then your blood sugar spikes up, and then your ghrelin, which is your hunger hormone, and your leptin, your satiety hormone, your leptin is going to be lower, your ghrelin is going to be higher. You're still going to be hungry after that, because then you have a blunt of insulin in your system, like, give me more stuff to put away into these cells. But if you eat your fiber first, it's creating that mesh, lowering that glucose into your bloodstream. But also, fiber doesn't need insulin to break down, right? Especially if it's insoluble, it stays bulky. And so layering that on to blunt that glucose response is going to automatically decrease your postprandial glucose and insulin spikes.
So when you go to a restaurant, you order a cocktail and then they bring your bread basket. That's probably not a good idea.
Oh, they know what they're doing. That's why restaurants have the chips and salsa first, have the bread first, because scientifically that's more money. You start craving. You'll be surprised at how many people they eat in that food order, and they don't even want the chips or the bread. And this is a beautiful thing, because it's like, it's not taking away things. It's just switching up the order. So you're craving it less, and you're more satisfied.
Yeah. So what should you do when the waitress comes by and gives you the bread basket? It's hard to pass that up.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard, but hold on a second. So, and we'll talk about something in a little bit, but just, order like a side of veggies, like steamed broccoli or a salad, and keep the chips or the bread, enjoy them, eat them first. So you like coat your stomach with that layer, and then enjoy the bread after, enjoy the chips and salsa after, or, eat a spoonful of guacamole and some beans or something before you do the chips and salsa.
Yeah. I have a story of, as you know, like I struggle with blood sugar stuff. And as I was, this was several months ago when I first realized that I actually have a blood sugar and issue, and I was starting to wear a continuous CGM, which I still wear. Is I was at a medical conference out in Utah and was at this amazing farm to table restaurant. And I ate my dinner, and then everybody at the table was getting dessert, and the food at this place was like so amazing. And I'm not typically a dessert person, but just at this place, everything was homemade and all organic. And I wanted this like peach pie. And I ate some of the peach pie, and I was expecting the alarm on my phone with my glucose monitor to like start going crazy to tell me that my blood sugar was too high. But it didn't go off. And I assume it was because I had already had my meal of vegetables and protein and fat. And then I was able to eat dessert without my glucose alarm going crazy.
Absolutely. And that's really how simple it is. Obviously, to start there, and obviously you want to eat a whole food, nutrient dense, diet. But to start, just experiment with that order first, because there's been, and then a few studies after that's been done. But yeah, Dr. Brenner, I know this doesn't look like it now, but I had severe cystic acne, and it was insane because both dairy, the sugar in it, and the protein, along with just my insulin resistance, was causing my skin. There was nothing I could sweep under the rug at that point. I was like, okay, something else is going on. So it can trigger a lot of symptoms. That's why I think it's hard for people to really put their finger on it. But I always start there, like, let's check your metabolic health, because that's really the foundation of many of these chronic and preventable diseases.
Yeah. Anything else somebody can do to lower insulin or blood sugar spikes?
Oh my gosh, apple cider vinegar. So I love ACV, and it's across vinegars across the board. So balsamic and white vinegar, but apple cider vinegar, as far as like drinking purposes, is more tolerable. But yeah, so this has had numerous studies done. About a tablespoon in like a 8-ounce glass of water, no longer than 15 minutes before a meal. Because if you do it like an hour before, studies have shown there's no effect. So like right before a meal, this blunts the enzymes that break down carbohydrates. So apple cider vinegar has acetic acid, and it blocks the amylase, which is an enzyme that breaks down carbohydrates. It blunts the secretion of that. So the enzyme doesn't come down to break those carbohydrates down as quickly. And they did a study, Dr. Brenner, and I think the effects of apple cider vinegar were comparable to that of type 2 diabetes medication to lower glucose spikes. It was insane. I'll have to get the study.
1 tablespoon in a glass of water?
Yeah, about an 8-ounce. You want to dilute it.
And do it 15 minutes before you eat?
Yeah, I do it like 5 minutes. So maybe let's narrow it down to like 10.
So do you need to dilute it, or can you just like chug a tablespoon?
I wouldn't recommend you can, but I wouldn't recommend it because you want to save the acid. It's not healthy for your esophagus and your teeth. But I mean, you can, but I wouldn't recommend it.
Gotcha. And how does that taste?
I like it, but I'm weird. Like I like earthy and just strange things. So what I found, some people will do dilute it even more, maybe have a bigger glass of it. But some people put it in their tea. I've never tried it. I've had people put it in their tea, or like a carbonated like seltzer situation with, some fruit or something, but experiment with it.
All right. I haven't been diluting mine. I've just been chugging it and then like rinsing my mouth out and
Oh
that
no,
kind of thing. So I
that's
got
not
a little bottle and I keep it in my purse and I just like do it and then like just drink regular water. But maybe it won't be as bad of mixing it with water.
Yeah, no, people are just like, I can't do this. I'm like, try mixing it with water. And I know this is, I got to talk to my dentist about this. I'll
I
put a
know
little,
it can mess up your enamel, which is why when I'm done, I like squish water around in my mouth.
yeah, it's highly acidic. That's why I'm like, don't do it by itself. And then, like I said, the esophagus, but I actually squeeze a little bit of lemon in mine and put some sea salt in it. I don't know if that's for everybody, but it tastes really good to me. I don't know. I like.
All right, I'll try it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me
All
know.
right. That's 1 and 2. Anything else?
Mindfully eating. That's a big one. Stress and digestion is absolutely alive and well, and it's very much studied as far as if you are stressed, the likelihood of you properly digesting your meal is very low because we hold a lot of tension and if you're like me and Dr. Brenner, we're busy mommies like working and we just need to sit down and we can scarf our food down mindlessly sometimes. And so this isn't only going to help with digestion, but also, letting, or what am I trying to say? It's going to allow us to think about how we're feeling and, really pay attention to our satiety because sometimes we overeat or we don't eat enough, but stress, yeah. So stress, obviously.
Yeah, so getting your lunch and eating in the car as you drive from one location to another, probably not a good idea.
I always advocate to pause in between transitions. So just sit down and chew because when we're stressed, what happens is, everybody's heard of the fight or flight and like you're fighting off a lion or tiger, bear, whatever. Your body is like, oh my gosh, Dr. Brenner is stressed. Like I need to help her fight off whatever threat is happening. So your blood flow ends up flowing outwards to your extremities. It's not flowing inwards to help go through the digestive process and to release the proper enzymes and acids needed to break down that food. It's not thinking about digesting, it's thinking about keeping you alive. And so, but when we're in a rest and digest state, that blood flow goes inwards. And so I always tell patients, like, I would rather you sit and just be relaxed and calm and eat chocolate cake than be stressed and eat like a salad. Because it goes back to the healthy, well, I ate a salad, but I'm still bloated. Well, how stressed are you? How's your sleep? Because that's going to factor in, the amount of enzymes and acid you're secreting to help break down that food, especially raw food.
Let's talk about just some things that you might think would be healthy that could cause a blood sugar spike, but is actually not healthy. And I like to bring this up is there was, oops, we just walked. All right, you there?
Yes.
Is there was this new juice bar that opened up here in Cincinnati, and I went to this juice bar, and you think like I got this green juice, so I assume it had kale or cucumber or something and some apples in it. You think like, okay, I'm being so healthy. My blood sugar went, and I ate that first thing in the morning when my glucose tolerance is actually not as good as it is later in the day. My blood sugar went crazy with this healthy juice.
Yeah, I see it all. I don't mean to laugh, but it's crazy because this is why everybody's situation is so unique. Because even Dr. Brenner, you could have the same juice maybe on vacation and you may not spike as high, right? Because you're more relaxed. It just depends. But yeah, because juicing, so the common foods are juices because they're stripped of that fiber, especially fruit juices, smoothies, especially people go to Smoothie King. Do you have a Smoothie King out there?
We do.
Juice, things like that. If you read the labels, it's just all fruit and all sugar. So smoothies aren't bad. It's how we are building them. I have a smoothie anatomy I share with the patients, and it shows you how to properly build a smoothie to satiate you and to balance your blood sugar. But smoothies, high fruit smoothies, like I mentioned, oats and muesli, breakfast cereals, coffee, but it's not the actual coffee. It's what we're putting into our coffee. I'm trying to think of other, like protein bars are a big one.
Oh yeah. Yes. I've had patients tell me that as well. I don't, I keep one protein bar in my purse basically just for an emergency, but I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of, I just don't like them. Maybe because I don't know, they're just so sweet and I don't typically like a lot of sweet things, but yeah, a lot of people are surprised by their blood sugar spike with protein bars.
Yeah, and what I always say is anything packaged, you want to look beyond the sugar. You want to look at the added ingredients, right? If the first 3 or 4 ingredients are sugar, even sugar's disguised as sugar, that thing's made up of sugar. And look at the carbohydrate density. So that's how many carbs and this is carbs like excuse me, starch or sugar, not the healthy carbs. How much of the bar is made up of carbs. So you take the amount of carbohydrates minus the fiber divided by the serving size. And you want to look for something 30 to 35%. Maybe we can put this in your show notes, or higher, in order for it to be green lit. Like, okay, this is a healthier option. Because a lot of the times these protein bars or these granola bars or healthy bars are ranking up to like 56 to 60% of sugar in the bar. And so what you think is healthy after you work out or after you go on a hike or whatever is really just damaging your blood vessels and, that blunting that spike, releasing that high spike.
Which I think is another topic of, some foods that you think are healthy that actually have a lot of sugar in them. And I think smoothies that you get at one of these smoothie places can be detrimental. In my smoothie, I like to keep, when my spinach or greens or kale start to go bad, I actually put them in the freezer. And then I add that frozen spinach or kale to a smoothie. I have a protein powder that I'll add some flax seeds, some chia seeds, some frozen fruit, water. And when I make it at home, my blood sugar, it doesn't get really mad at me. But if I would go to a smoothie restaurant, like that's a no for me.
Yeah, but you just built a perfect smoothie. So you want to look for 4 things, right? Your protein, and making sure you be careful of the powders, because that's another health food. A lot of these protein powders have so much stuff in them. It's insane. And then you have your fiber and fat, your chia seeds, your flax seeds, and then you have your leafy greens. And then what I say, if somebody is more prone to a blood sugar spike or insulin resistance, keep your berries to at least a 4th cup or less, and have darker berries like dark cherries or blueberries. Probably not blackberries because of the seeds, unless you don't mind them. And then, a little bit of banana if you need a sweetener, but you just built a perfect and ideal smoothie. Because when you go to these places, they're like all fruit, very minimal anything else. So nothing's, creating that mesh it's just all being released in your bloodstream. And then you're like,
yeah. And you think you're doing something, you think you're doing healthy.
Yeah. And people are like, so energized. Yeah, you have a blood sugar spike. Of course. Tell me how you feel in about an hour and a half. You're probably slumped over somewhere wanting to take a nap because that's what happens.
Yeah. You brought up oatmeal. A lot of people, I remember when I was in college or even in med school and residency in the doctor's lounge, they had those instant oatmeal packets where you just add water. So I ate those a lot, again, thinking I was so healthy. So let's talk, like, also those are that's just sugar in a packet.
Let me ask you, were you even full from those little packs? Like, yeah. I wasn't full. I had, I think, a banana with it, and then I would have a piece of toast with it. Just naked carbs everywhere. Like,
oh yeah. I mean, I thought when this was in medical school, I would talk about sugar. And I wonder why I have a problem now. In med school, I would have one of those instant oatmeal packs, add banana, add brown sugar to it, have a glass of orange juice and a bagel. That was my breakfast.
Yeah. And those are 3
whole wheat bagel though.
see those significant spikes. But the thing about that is, I always say, if you're starting out, my thing is to add in to crowd out. So don't eliminate everything all at once, because if that's all you have right now, how can you like tweak it, dress up your carbs so you don't have that, so you can blunt that spike? So if you only have instant oatmeal, is there like a nut butter, seed butter, avocado, egg, some sort of fat and protein you can eat before you have that oatmeal? Can you stir in some chia seeds or flax seeds? Like, what can you add to this to make it better? Like, really think about that in your options.
Yeah. And you called it what'd you say? Not eating naked carbs?
Yeah, dress them up a little bit. Like our bread, like I remember I would put like butter and sprinkle cinnamon on it and be like, oh, it's cinnamon. And it's no, like just dress them up a little bit. Like even your banana, can you eat it with some nut butter or something? Your bread, I drizzle some olive oil and some like everything bagel seasoning on it. Like what can you just add to it to, you know, not leave it naked?
Yeah.
You know?
The other thing, I recently made some vegetable soup, and I bought some vegetable broth at the grocery store, and then I looked at the label and there was sugar in vegetable broth. I'm like, what the heck?
Yeah, those hidden sugar, Dr. Brenner, the hidden sugar is everywhere. If you look in pasta sauces, dressings, but the thing is, you know, when I lived overseas for a little bit, they do add a little bit of sugar to things, but the difference is the amount we have all the time. And like overseas, they're walking everywhere. They're more active, and you know, it's a different kind of lifestyle, but it is everywhere. That's why I always say, take a moment to not just don't look at the calories and things, look at the carbohydrate density and look at the ingredients labeled added ingredients, because that'll tell you everything you need to know.
Yeah. So when you go to the grocery store and actually look at the different vegetable stocks, like there's some where it basically just says vegetable stock and usually some salt. Or some had hidden, you know, I think it was called maltodextrin, or, you know, these hidden names of sugars. So I actually started making my own vegetable stock. So when you cut up vegetables, you know, you peel carrots, all those vegetable scraps, I just throw them in a Ziploc bag, put them in my freezer. Then after it gets filled, then I make my own vegetable stock. So then there's nothing in it except vegetable stock or vegetables and water. And it's free.
That is it. And guess what? You can put your apple cider vinegar in there and drink it. It's so good. I mean, try it. It really is like, and you know, broth is so good for you. You know, making sure if you are buying it, it's organic, non-GMO, if it's from an animal, but vegetable broth, it's so good for you. It's so,
yeah. And you can make it free. So
exactly. You're reducing waste and saving money. I mean, what else?
Any other tips? One of the things that I like to do is after I eat to just try to go for a walk. Now that's not always possible because a lot of times I eat breakfast and lunch at work. So I don't have time to go for a 10-15 minute walk. So if I don't, this sounds kind of crazy, but I actually do like 30 squats or 30 lunges.
It's not crazy at all. And I think with the weather, and because out there it's really cold, out here it gets really hot. Like I don't even want to go outside sometimes, but that's okay. But there was actually a recent study done where they tested a 40-minute full workout versus, I think it was just walking, versus walking or doing some type of movement 30 seconds to a minute every like 25 minutes or whatever. And the latter was more efficient. So that being said, if you're sitting or, you know, you're working and you don't have time, just getting up and doing, like you said, some squats or some jumping jacks or walking in a circle around your desk, I don't know what it is, for like a minute or 2 minutes is sufficient, you know? So yeah, like you said, and just to get up and move your body after you eat, not immediately after you eat, because you obviously want to digest your food. But yeah, it's as simple as that. We overcomplicate a lot of things which it rightfully so. There's so much information out there, but just taking these small steps to blunt these spikes.
And probably in Europe, people are doing that just out of like they're walking home. So
they walk everywhere. I had a friend, Dr. Brenner, who she lived over there briefly. She would take the train 40 minutes to a Starbucks. And I'm like, girlfriend, there's so many cute cafes. Just walk. Why are you going to Starbucks overseas? You're in Europe. Like, there's so many cute cafes. Everybody's walking, and you know, they walk to the store, they walk to their restaurants, everywhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And I know as patients, if you're in our practice, people can actually work with you one-on-one and not only hear these tips, but I'm sure you got other tips up your sleeve that have to do with other medical issues or other concerns other than blood sugar spikes. So thanks for joining us, Cassie.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Brenner.
Thank you for listening to this episode of HealthiHer. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and the web. Go to www.dramybrenner.com to learn more. This podcast is for general information only and does not constitute as medical advice, the practice of medicine, nursing, or other healthcare services. No patient-physician relationship is formed. The information in the podcast and any references, material, or links are at the sole discretion of the listener and not meant to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Listeners should not delay or disregard obtaining medical advice for any medical issues or diagnoses that they may have, and should seek medical advice from their healthcare provider for any such conditions.